What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise live here on a Thursday. We're going live a little bit late. I spent some time cooking up some NBA schedule graphics as the NBA schedule dropped today, and we're going to break it down in full. We're going to take a look at all 82 games. Well, we're going to take a look at 80 because 2 have yet to be scheduled. In the Blazers case, hopefully 3, because that would be a part of the NBA Cup. And 3 games mean you get to the NBA Cup Finals, and that's what we're after this year. The Blazers are trying to win basketball games, which made this schedule drop today a little bit more exciting for me because the Blazers are going to take this schedule a little bit more seriously. I'm not being fully serious, of course, but you go into every season trying to win basketball games, but this is going to be an exciting season. I'm looking forward to it. You guys know I'm as excited for this season as any that I've covered, pretty much. So really looking forward to things, and apologies for the stream going live a little bit late, but I'll tell you what, I'm conditioning you guys for 10:30 p.m. stream start times because we're going to have some post-game shows that start at 10:30 p.m. Because we have 8 p.m. tip-off times. 8 p.m. Pacific tip-off times. That is the biggest takeaway from this schedule for your Portland Trailblazers is there is going to be some late post-game shows, but I'm cool with that. I don't know how Eric's going to fare with that, but I'm cool with that. It's going to be interesting. We also have a 10 a.m. game. I don't think I've ever seen a 10 a.m. game that wasn't the last day of the regular season. They also switched up the last day of the regular season. It sounds like those games are going to be in the evening instead of in the morning, which makes the final day of picks against the spread cool. But yeah, some interesting changes as the NBA goes into season number 1 with Amazon Prime and Peacock. And of course, they've had NBC before, but they bring NBC back on board, and those NBC games are going to be at 8 p.m. Pacific. So that's why I started the stream at 10:30. You guys are going to have to get used to some 10:30 start times for post-game shows. That's 1:30 Eastern time. So if you're over on the East Coast watching those post-game shows, shout out to you. Huge shout out to you. Shout out to you if you're here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Shout out to you if you're watching back after the fact. Normally I do my schedule breakdowns as a video, but just figured we'd do a live stream. Still no Eric, but this will be the last stream without Eric. At this point, it'll be kind of weird having Eric back. He's been gone for so freaking long. And he missed a new owner, and he missed the schedule drop, so Eric's just not around for anything. I guess he's still on Splash Mountain. But the other big takeaway was 8 nationally televised games for your Portland Trailblazers, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. The first one comes against the Phoenix Suns. Interesting matchup to have on national television, but I will say this. It seems like they're trying to highlight more teams on national television, which I think is absolutely great. That's what the NFL does. The NFL markets all their teams, creates intrigue for all their teams. The NBA, for too long, has been too focused on only the biggest markets. And when you look at the Blazers the last 2 years, they've only had one nationally televised game each season, and it was the same exact game. It was Dame, as part of the Bucks, returning to Portland. Of course, Dame's not returning to Portland as an opponent anymore. He's now a Portland Trailblazer again. So it was interesting to me to see what nationally televised games the Blazers would get this year. They get 8 of them. 1 on Prime, 1 on Peacock, 6 on NBC. And that's pretty cool to me. The NBC games have prime time, 11 Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, nationally televised games. On NBC, man. Like, the Blazers never play on ABC. But you get NBC primetime for your Portland Trailblazers. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see the product that NBC brings to the table. It was about time to get some fresh coverage of the NBA. So I'm super excited for the new television deal. I'm super excited for the Blazers having 8 of those games. And I'm not sure if they're going to flex some games late in the season, but if they do, maybe it ends up being more if the Blazers are competitive enough. Every team in the NBA gets at least 2 nationally televised games, though. So that's also a pretty cool thing. Like, even the Utah Jazz get 2 nationally televised games. And I'm all for that. I am with that. I am with trying to create a little more intrigue around the entire NBA product instead of just the biggest markets. So shout out to the NBA for doing that. The Blazers have more nationally televised games than I believe 7 other teams. The Heat only have 5, which is kind of funny. The Blazers have 3 more than them. For those of you that still care about that fan base rivalry. Dame's back as a Blazer and we got more nationally televised games even though he's not playing and Miami's sitting there with 5. But super cool stuff. But we're going to break things down by month. We're going to talk about the toughest stretches. The Blazers do have 15 back-to-backs. Shout out to, I'm going to go over to Casey Holdall's Twitter page because he had a lot of interesting facts about the schedule that I want to read out before we start taking a look at each and every month. Before I pull up this Twitter feed, shout out to my guy Muvsy Hoops. 14 Canadian dollar donation says, Raptors versus Blazers, who y'all got? I mean, you're asking a bunch of Blazer fans, so I'm not sure you're going to like the answer to that. I said that because Muvsy, with the Canadian dollar donation, is you can put 2 and 2 together. He is a Raptors fan. Also runs a great YouTube channel, so shout out to my guy. But yeah, I'm taking Portland. I think, you know what? I think that's going to be a toss-up. Of course, I got to take my team, right? I got to be biased. You know, I'm always just so biased for my team. But the Raptors are a team that I think could sneak into the play-in in the East. I think the Raptors should not be slept on. Half Daddy, I wish you didn't remind me. Also, that's kind of a weird name to say on stream, but I said it anyway. I don't want to think about baseball at the moment. Mariners lost 2 in a row. The world is ending. Anyway. So, there's a graphic tweeted out by the Portland Trail Blazers, okay? So, the longest homestand and road trip are 5 games. That is a stark contrast to previous seasons where I think last season we had 2 road trips that were longer than that. And the Blazers have 15 back-to-backs. The league high is 16. Home games by month, the Blazers have 3 in October, 6 in November, 6 in December, 8 in January, 7 in February, 7 in March, 3 in April. So like that's pretty balanced. January and February is very home heavy from all accounts. November there's a ton of games, a ton of road games. We're going to take a look at that though. The Blazers also have a stretch where they have 3 straight back-to-backs with like multiple days of rest in between each one, which is kind of strange. I do like that the Blazers start the season at home, but 15 of their first 24 games are on the road. Their first 2 games are at home, so that means 15 out of 22 games early on in the season are all on the road. It seems like that's a pretty common theme for the Portland Trail Blazers, unfortunately. So I'm looking at Casey's Twitter. He says the Blazers have 11 fresh games, which is more rest than their opponent. 9 tired games, which means less rest, and 60 games with an even rest advantage. So that's pretty even. For the Western Conference teams that they only play 3 times instead of 4, those teams are the Lakers, Mavericks, Suns, Warriors, Pelicans, and Spurs. And that is the details of the schedule that dropped today for your Portland Trail Blazers. What's funny is every time the schedule drops, it's like, this just determines my life for like 7 months, basically. And I know like people that cover the team, especially people that travel with the team, like that is definitely the case for them. But I have a day job too, so during the season, when I combine my work and then running the channel, I will work anywhere from 60 to 80 hours in a week. So whenever a schedule drops, it's like, all right, when will I ever get some free time? When will I ever be able to rest and recuperate? It turns out that almost half the Blazers games are on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. A ton of Sunday games, so it's just going to be a marathon for me. But I love it. Excited for it. Less than 2 months until the start of the preseason. Never work a day if you love what you do. Yeah, I mean, I love running the channel, but it is still work. And so I don't know if I subscribe to that saying, but I get it. Let me remove the pinned tweet here, and let's get rolling. Comment from Truth Tsunami says, I'm glad you're finally positive about the Blazers. I'm glad, too. I'm glad I'm excited for a season. I'm glad I have some hope, man. Like all the negativity that people just say, Torrey loves being negative, man. He loves being mad. He loves being angry. I really don't. I really don't. Like, I really don't enjoy it. It's just true emotion behind being a fan of this team, for real. So I'm glad that I'm happy too. We'll see, though. We'll see if I'm being too optimistic. Or maybe not optimistic enough. Anyway, let's jump into the schedule. Let's go back to October. This is month number 1 of the NBA season. I'll try and move it around, make it a little bigger here. All right, there we go. Let me just mess with the webcam 1 second. All right, there we go. All right, so October, game number 1. Oh, I freaking titled the. That's brutal. I titled the days wrong on these, man. That hurts. That hurts my soul. I spent 2 hours on these graphics. Doesn't feel good. Let me see if I can fix this on the fly. You guys get to see some live edits. Live edits. I had a feeling I was going to do that too. Anyway, what I'm going to get into too on this is the early stretch of the season is very tough for the Portland Trail Blazers, and I think it's going to make or break this team maybe for the entire season, whether they can get out to a solid start or not. Because it's either going to be yeah, they truly progressed, or maybe last season they overachieved on an 11-game stretch. And we'll get into some of these games. Okay, so if I... Oh, it doesn't change the name. Brutal. Okay. Hold on. Gonna be fun to see her since we last won a playoff series. I sure hope so. I sure hope so. I do feel that way. Okay. Excuse what's on the screen right now. All right. You got mail. Anyway, if you guys got questions, I'll answer them. Sorry, I am literally just trying to fix the freaking graphic because I got the days wrong. And that obviously is not good. Not good. Not only do I get the days wrong in the intros, man, now I get the days wrong on the graphic. Okay, so we're just going to move this over. There we go. Shout out to Muvsy Hoops, helping me stall with a $7 Canadian donation. Says the first couple games are brutal. Yeah, here's the thing that I was going to say about the early season schedule. So it's been this way for multiple years, and I feel like some people are like, oh, the NBA's out to get the Blazers. Look how hard they make their schedule at the start of the season. I feel like that's kind of an attitude that people have. But with the NBA Cup being in November, in like all those dates, all those cup games are in conference. So what that means is like pretty much all teams are playing in conference. Right? Because normally if you're going to go on like, as a Western Conference team, if you're going to go on a long West Coast trip, or an East Coast trip, like a cross-coast trip, normally you're going to play a bunch of games over there in a row instead of just like flying back and forth between the West and East Coast during the season. So, with the NBA Cup being a thing and all those games being in conference, it keeps teams playing in conference through November, essentially. The problem with that for the Blazers is the Western Conference is absolutely loaded. This might be the deepest conference I've ever seen going into a season on paper. You truly have 13 competitive teams, maybe 14 competitive teams. I mean, like, the Jazz and the Pelicans are bottom feeders, but the Pelicans have Zion, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Jordan Poole, DeJounte Murray is going to come back at some point. Like, the Pelicans got some guys. If they're the second worst team in the West, they're a pretty good roster for a second worst team in the West. They just get injured a lot. We know the deal with Zion. So, you know, the Spurs, the Kings, like the Kings have some name recognition, like some stars on their team, or guys that used to be stars, like a DeMar DeRozan. They got Sabonis. Like, even those teams that are at the bottom of the barrel in the West are competitive, much more competitive than when you used to have like 4 or 5 Utah Jazz type of teams. So the problem with playing a conference-heavy schedule in the West through November is that's going to look insanely difficult because all the teams are good. Anyway, let's start off with the month of October. I got this set up. We love it. All right. So, the Blazers play opening day at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's going to be a pretty good game. The Blazers actually had some success last year against the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's always fun having opening day at home. And last year, it was... Where did they... Oh, yeah, it was at home last year, and they lost by like 40, so maybe it's not so fun if you're going to lose by 40. Hopefully, this opening night goes much better. That opening night was against the Warriors, and that was like, oh, yeah, season's here. Another season of just piss-poor basketball. At home against the Timberwolves and Warriors, if you're the Blazers and you're trying to hold yourself to a high standard, those should both be winnable games. Like, that's the thing. Going into those first two games, like, oh, those are really tough games. That's the mindset of a team that is not good. If you're a good team, you're going into those games like, okay, we got home games against Minnesota and Golden State. We expect to win those basketball games. That's what good teams think. And, like, fan bases of good teams think. So, if the Blazers are truly taking a step, these first two games, I think you're going to kind of tell early on. And, like, things can always turn around. They could be really bad those first two games and turn it around. They kind of did that last year. But I still don't know how much stock to put in last year, considering they were 10-1 in an 11-game stretch where they, like, any team above 500 was missing their star or was on, like, the second night of a back-to-back, and it was in the lead-up to the All-Star game, so those teams, second night of back-to-back, were kind of tired. Like, you take out that 10-1 stretch in 11 games, and the Blazers last year were 26-45. That's not that good, right? So that's not to, like, completely act like that stretch didn't matter or mean something, but it was an 11-game sample compared to the rest of the season being a 71-game sample. So I think they'll go out with something to prove these first two games. They're playing at home. You're playing in front of a home crowd that should be pretty loud given the expectations going into this year. New ownership group is coming in. Dame's back. That should be a raucous Moda Center. And you got two teams that are playoff teams, but they're not like OKC. So, can you win both those first two games? Can the Blazers win both those first two games? That's a goal for them. Because then you go on the road, you play the Clippers and the Lakers. Like, all these are playoff teams, but if the Blazers are trying to, like, act like they're in that group, if the Blazers are truly that caliber, they should be able to be competitive in all these games. Second night of a back-to-back against the Lakers is tough, but it's not like you're traveling. Both those are road games, but you're in LA. Maybe it's an ambitious goal, but the Blazers 3-1 in the first 4 games, I would be very happy. They should at least be 3-2 after the first 5, because then that third road game on the 29th is against the Jazz. So you got home games against Minnesota, Golden State, road game against the Jazz, road games against the Lakers and Clippers. They should be able to go 3-2. Last year's team, or the year before at the start of the season, goes 1-4 in this first 5-game stretch. Then they come home and play Denver. That's a tough game. Denver really, really improved this offseason. I was really impressed with what they did. Let's turn the schedule over to, nope, that's April, over to November. Okay. Over to November. They got another game against the Lakers, and then they got a game against the Thunder. It's a home game against the Thunder. The Thunder, of course, defending champs 68-14 last year. Like, you get a win in that game, it could be the first win of the season. That'd be a pretty damn good win. Would feel pretty good about that. But yeah, if you look at this first 8-game stretch, you got 7 Western Conference playoff teams. Minnesota, Golden State, the Lakers twice, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Thunder. This stretch, to start the season, I think you're going to know a lot about the Blazers after just only 8 games. And, of course, the Blazers struggled the first 8 games last year and improved. So I'm not trying to sit here and act like, oh, yeah, if the Blazers are 2-6, like their season's over after 8 games. But you got 4 home games in that stretch. Or no, is it 5 home games in that stretch? You got 5 home games in that stretch out of 8. You got to win some games. Got to win some games. I don't expect them to be OKC, but I expect them to have a chance of beating the Lakers when they play them. I expect them to have a chance of beating the Clippers, the Timberwolves, the Warriors. Like, that's the tier the Blazers are trying to make a jump towards. They then have 2 days rest, play the Heat on the road. The Heat are a beatable team. Then they play the Magic. It'll be interesting to see how good the Magic are the first 10 games after making the trade for Desmond Bane. I thought Orlando got better and could be a top 4 team in the East. So that's no cakewalk. Miami is not as good as they were with Jimmy Butler. Like, if the Blazers are playing well, that could be a game that I would favor Portland at Miami. Then you play the Pelicans. Like, that's a game hopefully they can definitely win. We'll see who's healthy in that game. But this early season stretch is just going to be super intriguing to me. Then you have an NBA Cup game. The first NBA Cup game is the 31st against the Nuggets. The second one, 14th, against the Rockets, against KD on the road. Like I said, a lot of Western Conference teams in here. It is... One thing I do not like about the schedule is the Blazers have a 5-game road trip. They play 2 Eastern Conference teams, so they still leave 13 Eastern Conference teams on the table, and they fly all the way to Florida. So they go all the way from Portland to Florida to play Miami and Orlando, and then they play Western Conference teams and come back. That just increases the mileage, and the Blazers have the most flight miles of any team. But when you're flying from the Northwest to the Southeast and then not having a legitimate East Coast trip when you're over there, it just adds to the flight miles at the end of the day. So, not a fan of that. I wish the NBA did a better job at cutting down on the flight miles. Like, for a 5-game road trip, that should all be Eastern Conference teams, in my opinion. But one of those is a cup game. So, like I said, it's just going to be very Western Conference heavy. Anyway, those Laker games, by the way, I've completely forgot about this. DeAndre Ayton time. We get to see how hard he tries. Maybe I'll go to that game on November 3rd just to make my voice heard. But anyway, so after this 5-game road trip, the Blazers have multiple 5-game road trips, but none longer than that. The Blazers then have their first 8 p.m. tip-off time on Tuesday, November 18th against the Phoenix Suns on NBC. Of course, we'll have NBC games before then, so we'll be able to see what that looks like, their production. But it'll be cool to see the Blazers playing on NBC, man. Prime time. Matt, that is an unacceptable joke. There's a timeout. Anyway, really cool to see them playing on NBC. How do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about the 8 p.m. tip-off times? I'm going to do a chat poll. All right, ASMR typing. Here you go. Love it, like it. Dislike it. And hate it. All right, those are your options. Charlene says late night going to game, but okay with it. Yeah. I think a lot of the NBC games were at home, it seemed like. Or maybe it was like 5 of the nationally televised games, 5 of the 8, which I'm cool with. 8 p.m. never too late for PDX. Yeah, I don't know. I love it. I love it. Like, you get a whole day out of the way and then finish the day with that. Finish the day with the post-game show. Fall asleep. You can fall asleep in bed while listening to the post-game show. Because I know some of you actually do that. Shout out to you. But the schedule, like, so the first 8 games go through Wednesday the 5th. Like I said, that's, I think, a legitimate 8-game litmus test. After that, it's not too difficult of a stretch. You got 7 games with a game against Miami, a game against New Orleans, a game against Phoenix, a game against Chicago. That is 4 lottery teams, in my opinion. Like, Miami's probably a playing team in the East, but they would be a lottery team in the West. Dallas is also a fringe playoff team without Kyrie. That's going to be your first look at the Blazers playing against Cooper Flagg. If he's healthy, hopefully he will be. And then you got a couple teams that got better and added big pieces this offseason in Houston and Orlando. So that's a really interesting 7-game stretch for those reasons. November is not too difficult, in my opinion. There's been months in November where there's like 17 games. The Blazers play only 14 in this month. The Cup games will be fun. We'll see what the Blazers can do in those. The tough thing is you do have OKC 3 times. So can they win one of those 3 games against OKC? On the 24th, you have Dame's return to Milwaukee. Well, not really. He's not playing yet, but it's going to be weird for Milwaukee to be another like normal game. Because normally it's been a game we circle on the schedule because of Dame. Now it's just another game again. But look at the stretch from the 21st to the 26th. You got Steph, SGA, Giannis, Wemby. So that's a fun little stretch there. The Blazers seem to have a lot of just little homestands and then road trips, right? They have 2 home games, the 18th and 19th, and a 3-game road trip, then come back home for 2 games. Now maybe it's more. Here, let me update this. What is happening to my computer? All right. Here we go. This is the month of, let me update the month. This is the month of December. So the Blazers play 4 road games, 3 on the East Coast. Well, if you want to count Toronto and Cleveland and Detroit as the East Coast, I guess it's the Midwest. I don't remember if that Sunday, the 7th game, is an NBC game for Memphis. You guys can let me know if there's any mistakes on this graphic. Shout out to my girlfriend for helping me make it. She was reading it off to me. Or else the stream still might not be live if she wasn't helping me out. But, yeah, you got 4 road games. I think those are all winnable road games except for maybe the Cavs. But the Blazers almost beat the Cavs on the road last year. Of course, they were missing Donovan Mitchell for that game. We'll see if the Blazers can beat the Raptors, since that was a question from Muvsy earlier. But then the 8th through the 17th, that's that stretch where the Blazers don't have any scheduled games because that's when the NBA Cup playoffs take place. And if you are in it, then you get 2 scheduled games. So the Blazers, I think, would play like the 10th and the 12th or something like that. So that's a decent stretch where they have some time off, assuming they don't make the final 8. It'd be cool if they did. But that's 2 games in 10 days otherwise. And then the Blazers have a pretty packed schedule rest of December. It's always interesting because it always feels like they play the 23rd and the 26th and like the 30th of December, where like games are a little bit spaced out. But no, it's pretty packed around Christmas. Of course, the Blazers don't get a Christmas game. But the day after Christmas, they do play on Amazon Prime. So you can get Amazon Prime for your Christmas shopping and keep the subscription through the end of December to watch the Blazers play the Clippers. And then you can cancel it if you don't want it. Now, the Blazers, I believe, have two or three stretches where they play the same team twice in a row, which I don't like when they play the same team twice in a row, so I'm happy about that because in previous years it's been basically double that. So the Blazers got the Kings on the 18th and the 20th. A lot of 7 p.m. tip-off times to end the month. The Blazers will play 2 Western Conference teams if they don't make the NBA Cup playoffs during that empty stretch. And then got a lot of home games rest of December. Kings, Pistons, Magic, Clippers on Prime, Celtics, 3 p.m. on Sunday. You'll notice there's going to be a lot more Sunday games coming up. After the NFL season ends, the Sunday games begin because the NBA is not competing against the NFL. Yeah, there's no way the Sunday game is on NBC at 3 p.m. because that would conflict with Sunday Night Football. So I forgot to take the logo off, all right? So I'll fix that. But yeah, I mean, I'm just super interested to see like the difference between NBC and Prime and Peacock. Like, will there be any differences, or is it just all going to be the same? I don't know. Excited for it nonetheless. But yeah, the Blazers got a nice little 5-game road trip or 5-game home stand there. So they'll only play, assuming they don't make the playoffs, they'll only play 2 road games in between December 8th and December 30th. The Celtics game on the 28th, of course, is the return of Anthony Simons to Portland. The Mavericks game on the 29th is the first chance to see Cooper Flagg in Portland, if you want to. And that game is on NBC. That game is legitimately on NBC, 8 p.m. tip-off time. And then, New Year's Eve, the Blazers play the Thunder at 5 p.m. All these times are Pacific, by the way, in case anybody was confused. So, 7:30 p.m. post-game show, going to like 9:30. Maybe we will, That probably has to be a shot night, right? It's New Year's Eve. That probably has to be a shot night. In the future, I'll add like videos that I plan on dropping to the schedule, as well as maybe event nights. I don't know if I have the space to add the event nights, but we'll see. All right, let's jump into the month of January. Where the Blazers play 15 games. This is maybe, just like eyeballing it, maybe the easiest month on the Blazers schedule. Shout out to Muvsy with a $7 Canadian donation. Says shot night. I think Muvsy might have had a shot, considering he's donated 3 times. We appreciate it, Muvsy. I support you taking more shots. Hope you're feeling better. But he put multiple O's, so is it shoot night? I don't know. What's going on? Eric Brandt in the chat. Missing the schedule. Missing a new ownership group. Like, will he ever come back? I don't know. Eric, what do you think about the 8 p.m. tip-off times? Do you love it, like it, dislike it, or hate it? You gotta let me know. But when you look at the schedule, I mean, this is like maybe the time of year the Blazers could go on a little run. You got New Orleans, San Antonio, Utah. You got some home games against the Rockets back-to-back. So there's 3 back-to-backs where they face the same team. Then you got the Knicks at home, 3 p.m. Tip-off time on Sunday. That's an NFL playoff Sunday, I believe. So be going up against that. You do got NBC game on the 13th at the Warriors, 8 p.m. tip-off time. Weekend 8 p.m. is fine. Sucks when you have to get up early. Well, I think all the 8 p.m. games are weekdays, so. But like, you look at some of the teams the Blazers are facing this month: Washington, Sacramento, Toronto, Miami. Atlanta should be solid, but beatable at home. Utah, San Antonio, New Orleans. The Blazers have 8 home games in this month. This is the month where I think the Blazers could really go on a run. Like, the goal for me would be like hover close to 500 until the end of the new year, and then this month with 15 games, like win 9 of them. Go 9-6, like maybe get back to 500. That would be the hope. There is an interesting stretch here where the Blazers have 3 straight back-to-backs. The first set is on the 17th and 18th against the Lakers and the Kings. That's a home-road back-to-back. Of course, the road game's in Sacramento, so it's the closest opponent. Then they have 3 days rest, and then they play another back-to-back. This is at home, so they get to stay home for this one. Miami, Toronto. Then they get 2 days rest. Then they play another back-to-back. This is all the way on the East Coast in the Northeast against Boston and Washington. And then they have 2 days rest. So at least they're getting some rest in between these back-to-backs, but really kind of an interesting stretch there that I don't know if I've ever seen, at least in a normal season. That Boston game on January 26th is a Peacock game. So it's their one Peacock game. 2 nationally televised games this month, the 13th and the 26th. And those last 3 games, East Coast road trip. Boston should be beatable this year without Tatum. Without Drew. Drew's here, so that'll be Drew's return game to Boston. As well as no Porzingis there. Washington, of course, is going to be a bottom feeder. And New York, who should be maybe the top 2 team in the East next year. We'll see. Now, let's move on to February. Ignore the numbers at the bottom there. Of course, February, we have the All-Star break taking place from February 13th to February 19th. We'll have the trade deadline. I believe it's February 5th. Yeah, should be February 5th. Normally, it's that Thursday. A lot of home games right before the All-Star break. Cleveland, Phoenix, Memphis twice in a row. Philadelphia. Another Phoenix game on NBC, by the way. Another 8 p.m. tip-off time on a Tuesday. Before 2 road games right before the break. The Blazers play their second and third games against the Suns this month. We'll do watch parties on Suns Valley podcast. You got Memphis back-to-back. I really don't like those. Both home games. So if you really, really want to see Ja Morant, if he's not suspended for something with weapons, you better clear your schedule for that weekend. And then coming out of the All-Star break, Denver, Phoenix, Minnesota on NBC, Chicago, and Charlotte at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. on a Saturday. That's new. The thing is, I didn't even catch that at first. So I was being told the times when I was creating this graphic, and I was told, 10 a.m. It's like, what? You reading that wrong? No, 10 a.m. tip-off time. On Saturday, February 28th, for some reason. So, is that the earliest tip-off time ever? Outside of the last day of the regular season? Like, there's never been like a 9 a.m. tip-off time. The NBA just wants to get that matchup out of the way because it's the Hornets? I don't know. That's the thing about the schedule. There's just some new things to it. So, you got an 8 p.m. game on February 24th and a 5 p.m. game on the 26th and then a 10 a.m. game on the 20th. Literally all over the place. We'll go from doing a 10:30 p.m. postgame show to a 12:30 p.m. postgame show. So, nice to not have a game before the deadline. Yeah, it is nice to have 2 games off, 2 days off, on Wednesday the 4th and Thursday the 5th. Who are we playing? Is it actually a WNBA tip-off time? I guess they're trying it in the NBA now. Maybe it worked in the WNBA. I don't know. We had some weird start times in the bubble, if I recall correctly. Yeah, I mean, the bubble was unique, but did we really have a 10 a.m. Start time? I don't know. This month, you do have some winnable games. We'll see how good Memphis is, especially this time of year. Like, maybe Ja gets traded right before those games. That would be interesting. He's a name to watch out for at the deadline. Like, Phoenix, Philadelphia, who knows what the hell they're going to be at that point of the season. If they're healthy, they could be really good. But there's also a legitimate chance they're not healthy and they suck and might already be tanking like they were last year. You got Utah, you got Chicago, you got Charlotte, Phoenix, twice. Some home games. Like, January and February is when the Blazers, I think, have things the easiest. We'll see if they can take advantage of that. Now let's jump into the month of March. All right. In this month, the Blazers have 8 games in 2 weeks. If you look at the 15th through the 27th, that's 8 games in 15 days. Quite the stretch. 5 of them are a 5-game road trip. 3 games on the East Coast. So, and like I said, after the NFL season, look at this. The 22nd, Sunday. And then, whoops, I think I went backwards. 22nd, Sunday. 6 Sundays in a row, April. They don't have a Sunday, the first Sunday of April, but 6 Sundays in a row. You got, most of them are 3 p.m. tip-off times. You got a 2 p.m. tip-off time on the 22nd, a 6 p.m. tip-off time on the 8th. But 8 and 15 days is quite the stretch. So things a little lighter in January and February. Things get tough in the month of March with the number of road games. I will say the opponents, Indiana, no Halliburton. No, they lost Miles Turner. Charlotte, Utah, 2 games against Brooklyn, a game against Milwaukee. I don't know how good they're going to be. A game against Washington, Dallas. The schedule is definitely harder right at the start of the year in October and November, and even in December, and then January, February, March, it does look a little bit easier. But of course, I mean, some of these teams could be much better than we think, and some of these teams could be much worse. But just the 8 games in 15 days is diabolical. It's diabolical. 9 games in 17 days. There is another NBC game this month, March 31st, on the road against the Los Angeles Clippers. Everything else is relatively ordinary. Definitive One says we should be deep enough to handle the tough stretches. I can't believe I just said that. Yeah, I mean, in a stretch like that, you lean on the bench a little bit more. You maybe don't play Drew Holiday 35 minutes in all these games. You know, you maybe one of these games you rest Giannis. And you just take care of your vets. But yeah, that's what the month of March looks like. Isn't it 9 games in 15 days? No, it's 8. 15th through the 27th. Oh, no, that's 8 games in 13 days. Jeez. 8 games in 13 days. I was lying. Yeah, 9 games in 15 days. 8 games in 13 days. I love how chat just let me slide that joke by them with no response. The joke earlier. But yeah, 8 games. Yeah, you only have 4 rest days, the 17th, 19th, 20th, 1st, 24th, 26th. Wait, is it 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13? Yeah, 8 games, 13 days. Numbers are hard at 11:30 at night, obviously. So 8 games, 13 days, only 5 rest days. Brutal stretch. Yeah, I literally just said, maybe rest Giannis for a game in this stretch, and chat just didn't even respond. Because this is after the deadline. And let's look at the final month of the season, which is the month of April. All Western Conference games. Could be some meaningful Western Conference games against any of these teams, except for probably the Nuggets and probably the Clippers, but they could be injury prone, who knows. But the Pelicans, Spurs, Kings, especially the Kings last day of the regular season, that could be a meaningful game for playing purposes. Connor says it's 11:30. You can't expect people to be on it with hidden jokes. It wasn't even hidden. I said it. I just straight up said it. It was very out there in the open. But yeah, that's the rest of the schedule. I do think it's interesting that the 12th is a 5:30 p.m. tip-off time. Are the rest of the NBA games in the evening? Did they just shift the way they normally do it back to the evening? You know what? I can go on the ESPN app and look at the final day. So you got a bunch of 3 p.m. tip-off times and a bunch of 5:30 p.m. tip-off times. So instead of doing it at 10 a.m. and 12:30 p.m., they did it at 3 and 5:30, which is great because normally we do picks against the spread on that day. And now instead of having to do a stream at 9 a.m., we can do a stream at 2 p.m. So I'm with that. Definitive, that's funny, man. No. I just want to see who caught it, and nobody did. A little disappointed. Anyway, that's the Blazers' schedule breakdown. Leave your thoughts on the schedule. I can answer some questions, of course. And real quickly on the new ownership. So now that we've had a couple days to settle from this, so it sounds like Board of Governors has to approve this, and that could take months. It took months for the Celtics. I know the Timberwolves thing took a while. The Timberwolves thing seemed a little messy, but so it could be like mid-season until the sale is approved. I would think like the Board of Governors. I don't know like everything they have to do. Like I don't know all the details and ins and outs of everything that needs to be approved by the Board of Governors for this. But you'd think they would want to streamline the process as much as possible with the season starting soon. Like the season starting in 2 months. The Celtics sale started in March and just became official, but I don't know. Like these things take time, so probably mid-season. Be interesting to see the new ownership group. Like, are they not supposed to go to games if they don't officially own the team yet? Like, this is all new to me, man. I've never really paid attention to the way this thing goes, and it's never happened with this team in my lifetime. So that's new. New things this year, and an old thing in Damian Lillard that's even more exciting to have him around the team. But, I mean, at the end of the day, with Tom Dundon coming in, I just hope that he can replicate what he did with the Carolina Hurricanes here in Portland. The NHL and the NBA are obviously different. I think the salary caps are different. Like, it's not just as simple as doing the same thing as he did with the Hurricanes in Portland, but he took a team that was on a playoff drought, and year one, I believe, he took them to the conference finals. He inherited that team, and they were in a similar place as the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, I feel like things can kind of turn around quick in the NHL. Like, it's a little bit more, there's maybe a little bit more parity, I guess, or a little bit more season-to-season change. So, I'm not expecting the Blazers to be a conference finals team all of a sudden. But he's a competitive guy. I hope he holds this organization to the highest of standards. He hates losing. I love to hear all that. And I love what he's done with the Hurricanes. So, a guy that will come in and make sure that we are doing what we need to do as an organization to try and reach the upper echelon in this league is important. He does not seem like a guy that's just coming in to try and collect a paycheck and sell the team later on and make some money off of it. He has doubled the valuation of the Hurricanes, but he is investing $1 billion in a multi-purpose space around the arena. So this is exactly what I wanted in an owner, is a guy that will come in and not settle for mediocrity. And he is, from all accounts, not a guy that's just going to settle for mediocrity. He's the guy that's calling the commissioner, calling the league office, asking all sorts of questions. And agents rated him the worst owner in the league. Some fans were like, oh no, he's the worst owner in the NHL according to this poll. What did we just do? If agents think he's the worst owner, that's probably a good thing. I mean, you don't want agents steering their clients away from the team because of the owner, but to me it's like, all right, this dude won't roll over to an agent, Chad Coe, the Blazers could have a decent chunk of cap space next season. Yes, it's, I think, lower than that, though, because they have Drew and Jeremy Grant. But as I've said before, I hate when an organization just kind of settles for mediocrity, and it's like the feeling is like the ownership is happy with this team just making a playoffs and bowing out in 5 games because they get playoff revenue. And they get to keep their fans invested all season long. Because, we might get the 8th seed. You definitely want to watch games in April. And with this new ownership group, after winning 36 games, it kind of felt like, oh yeah, they're going to get right into mediocrity just man, let's just hope that we can be in the play-in so we can keep our fans invested and make money. Imprint money. Like, that was the feeling I got from this ownership group. I don't think Tom Dundon, and he has investors from Portland and wants more local investors, reportedly. I don't think that's an ownership group that's just going to be like, yeah, we just want to be completely average so that we can be the 8th seed. Maybe that's being too optimistic, but he's a competitive guy. He struggles going to games because he hates to lose. That is something that I like. So, super excited to see what comes of this. Because if he can somehow replicate what he did in the NHL with the Portland Trail Blazers, we are about to have a fun next decade. We're about to have a fun next decade. And it's not like the Carolina Hurricanes have won a championship, but man, they've been close. Very close, and they've been a really good organization. And he took them from the brinks of like relocation and brought them back from the dead, essentially. So, super excited. Super excited. This is more hope than I've ever felt as somebody running this channel. Like, I've never been this positive looking at the next couple of years. It's kind of strange. It's kind of strange. Has anyone else seen where he talks about his meddling? I have seen the clip. I forget exactly what he said, but like, basically it's, I'm paraphrasing this and kind of explaining what he meant, but like, he knows that he doesn't know more about basketball than like Chauncey Billups or Joe Cronin, but he will make them justify the moves that they're making, and he will ask them questions about like, why not do this? Why is this a better move than this? Like, that I don't think has to be a problem. The worry with Burt Cold was like he is influencing moves and he just wants yes men that just kind of go along with what he does. If that was the case with the Carolina Hurricanes, I don't think they would have been such a good franchise under Tom Dundon. If he was just hiring yes men that would basically just like go to him for moves to make and he could basically act as GM as the owner, I don't think they would have been as successful. So to me, people worry about any owner that's like meddling or hands-on or blah, 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 but it just seems like he's very invested in his teams as an owner, wants to see them win, wants to see them be the best, and he's not just going to like let the GM do whatever without justifying it or explaining it. I think that's a good thing too. I truly do. Hey Joe, we just gave Norman Powell this contract. It's really such a bad contract that we're getting nothing back for it. Oh, you're saying this Eric Bledsoe's contract is going to be a great asset? Okay, can you please explain that to me? And then when his dead money's on the books and we literally got nothing back, then it's like, okay, so do we have an ownership group that's just going to be like, okay, whatever? Or do we have an ownership group that's going to be like, okay, so you pitched this to me as an asset you could use and then you didn't do it? We had the question marks about like, oh yeah, were the Blazers too scared to try and build around Dame and take the 3rd overall pick? Like, trade the 3rd overall pick so they draft Scoot, run Dame out of town. I think that could have played out differently with Tom Dundon as owner, and maybe that wouldn't have been for the best, but I think with where the Blazers are headed, which is on the upswing out of a rebuild, it's the perfect time to have an owner that's competitive and wants to win. You can make the argument that having him 3 or 4 years ago wasn't necessarily the best for this team ever contending for a championship, but I think now is the perfect time. So with all that said, super excited about this new ownership group. Super excited to be done with the team's gonna move trolls that always come in here and try and tell us our channel's gonna die because we're not gonna have a team anymore. And anybody that still does that, you're not to be taken seriously because He's not going to give Dallas a second team. And Raleigh is not going to have a team when Charlotte has a team. So, but yeah, a guy that will hold people accountable and wants to win and is competitive. That's what I wanted out of an owner. So I think this is going to be a good move, good thing for the Blazers. I think the Blazers are on the right track. Now you just have to hope the young players progress. And it's basically just like looking ahead at this season where you have a lot of questions answered. You have the ownership question answered. It's just waiting for it to get ratified, for it to become truly official. You literally have Dame back. Long term, the runway is cleared for Scoot and Sharp, it seems like. But next season depends on them. So now it's just finding out what those two guys got in year 3 and year 4. And seeing if they can break out. It's seeing what Denny can be as potentially a number 1 option offensively. And it's seeing if this defense can be elite. It's just all on the court. And I think some of the headaches beyond that are going to be gone. And after last season winning 36 games, we can go into next season like maybe this team could be above 500. Instead of, yeah, we'll see if this team wins 21 games or 27 games. And I'm happy to be having those different conversations now. So. Tristan says, I saw a Reddit post that the Mavericks are going to move to Las Vegas and we're going to go to Dallas. Oh, man. I mean, that's what you get on Reddit. It's just completely illogical stuff. That's why a lot of them don't like me over there, man. It's that's quite that's some mental gymnastics. I know there's the conspiracy theory about the Mavericks owners. They're sabotaging the team. That's why they traded Luka. Because they want the team to be bad, because they want a casino in their arena, so they want to go to Vegas. Which, I mean, listen, there's no good explanation for the Luka trade, so that's as good as any, to be honest. Like, there's a greater than 0% chance that's true, but it's very unlikely that it is. I don't really buy it, but the Luka trade was so insane that I don't blame people for coming up with conspiracy theories like that. But I mean, you're talking about a guy that's from Dallas that took over a team that was already in relocation rumors in Raleigh, North Carolina, and has signed a lease through 2044. It's so far in the future, I can't even say the year right because it just doesn't sound right. 2044. He doubled their valuation. He kept them in Raleigh, North Carolina, as somebody that's from Dallas and the New York City area, and has signed a lease for the next 20 years. That doesn't sound like a guy that's going to come into Portland with an organization that has support and who's going to get them to leave. Also, the NBA is not going to let another Northwest team leave. They made that mistake with Seattle. They're not going to make it again. Like, even if he wanted to. Too many hoops to jump through. So, but I do like, it was not something that I was worried about, but I do like having somebody with the track record that he has that also has been in the situation where he took over a smaller market team and a team that had relocation rumors, and he said, no, we're staying. We're gonna put down roots here. So, and then invested in the area around the stadium. Like, that's exactly what I feel like people were asking for if they were worrying about the team moving, is somebody like that. Well, no, they were asking for Phil Knight. They were asking for a local guy, but it was never going to be a local guy. So for an outsider, this is as good of a track record as you could hope for. And then you have Tim Boyle, reportedly interested. And there's the report that Tom Dundon wants the local people as part of his ownership group. Yeah, that's not somebody that's trying to get the team to leave. So, I love the sale. I love everything that's going on right now, man. It's a good time to be a Blazer fan, and it's the first time I've said that in a while. So, super excited for the season. Super excited to have the schedule in front of us. We're going to do some fun things this year on post-game shows. We're going to do more video content. And should be a lot of fun. I'll answer your questions for about 5-10 minutes, and then I'll get out of here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me late on a Thursday night. See, I guess it's late, and I forget the day. I do plan on being at opening night, Minnesota. Should be a fun game. Hopefully better than last opening night. Who gets fired first? Between who? I'll answer your question. Just let me know who. Chatco says Phil Knight basically took his initial offer and donated it to OHSU. Yeah, I saw that news today. That's cool of him to do. $2 billion was never going to buy the Blazers. I said that when it was reported that he offered that. I know a lot of people were angry with Jody Allen and this ownership group not selling to Phil Knight, but he didn't offer enough money. Especially considering the team wasn't actively for sale at that time. They literally made twice that. So, it was definitely a low ball. Who's in a better position right now, us or the 76ers? You know what? I'd say to win a championship next season, it's definitely the 76ers. I know people aren't really taking them seriously, but if they are healthy, if VJ Edgecombe has a great rookie season, if Embiid's healthy, if Paul George can bounce back a little bit, it looks like he's declining, but he was really rough last season, so maybe he could be a little bit better. You have Quentin Grimes. I know he's still a restricted free agent, but I think at minimum he's going to sign the qualifying offer for them. Jared McCain last year, before he got hurt, looked like a true star at times as a rookie. You got Maxey. Justin Edwards is an underrated player for them. They have a lot of pieces in an Eastern Conference that's wide open. I would be less surprised by them making the finals this upcoming season than I was by the Pacers making it. Even though I believed in the Pacers. So, but long term, I'd probably take Portland just with the assets that they have. Philadelphia does have some future draft capital, and you got young players there too. Maxey, Grimes, McCain. Tristan Klein says, for Tim Dundon to be a win-now guy, I would assume he loves what Cronin has done this offseason. If Chauncey has another losing year, he is out the door. Yeah, man, I mean, does this kind of put Chauncey on the hot seat? A new owner coming in, and Chauncey's record the last 4 years is abysmal. Blazers broadcasting won't even put it on the screen anymore like they used to for all the head coaches. And you know, I get why. It's not a good record. So coming in, the head coach has a poor record. You're wanting to win. Expectations are higher this season than they've been in a while. And if they have another losing season, if they don't win more games, maybe he would want to be a little bit more patient being a new owner, but I could see a shakeup happening. Shout out to Chris Burkhart. What's up, Chris? Good to see you, man. Says the ultimate WWE babyface move would be Knight to join Dundon's team as an investor. Checkmate. That would be cool. That would be cool. I feel like the $2 billion that he donated was the money that he would spend to become invested, unfortunately. But I do like that he's getting local ownership. And it would be cool to see Phil Knight be a part of it. But Tim Boyle Cool with that. I don't know. I don't know all the rich people around Portland, so I don't know who else could be involved. And I have wondered, because he was a part of trying to bring baseball to North Carolina, MLB to North Carolina. I do wonder if part of him purchasing the team is like he wants to have some ownership of an MLB team too, especially an expansion team, and maybe MLB to PDX. Maybe he could get involved with that. I don't know how much money he has to buy the team, but then also invest in that, but who knows? I thought that was interesting. It was strange when I live streamed after the news. I googled his net worth and it said $271 million, which like sounded wrong, but I didn't know anything about the guy. It's like, yeah, there's no way a guy with a net worth of $271 million is spending $4 billion on a team. So shout out to Google. Shout out to Google for being wrong. You don't believe everything you see on the internet for a reason. Definitive One says they say Dundon cleaned house when he bought the NHL team. IDK, if that means anything. Well, they were struggling. They needed to clean house. This is a little different where he's coming in to a team that made progress last season. I don't think it's the exact same situation. I know I compared the situations of the two teams, but the Hurricanes were in rough shape and he came in, cleaned house, and had immediate results there. I think it's a little different. You hear that Ant's going to be coming off the bench for Boston. Thoughts? Yes, this is something I wanted to talk about. So, if there was a certain co-host here with me, this would be a more interesting conversation, I think, considering he is one of the biggest Anthony Simons fans I know. But he and Peyton Pritchard are very similar to me. I feel like Peyton Pritchard makes quicker decisions, which is better for their offense starting next to Derek White, Jaylen Brown, like somebody that both those guys can play off the ball and knock down the three-point shot. I feel like Ant is a little bit more ball dominant, and I feel like that works a little bit better off the bench. So I feel like fit-wise, it makes sense considering they're a similar caliber of player. It will be interesting to see, like, okay, does that mean he's playing 25 minutes a game, or is he playing 31, 32? How many points per game is he getting? We haven't seen Ant in this situation since he broke out in Portland. He broke out and then was the second guard next to Dame, but had a decent season and then was the number one guy in the backcourt. It's going to be interesting to see what he does in a little bit lesser of a role. But I do think he's kind of made for that Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford type of role. I think he's good enough to start, so I don't want to say that as in, he should be coming off the bench. But I think on a really good team, especially when you looked at the playoffs and then you looked at the type of players that were starting for the Pacers and the Thunder, unless you were the engine of the offense like Tyrese Halliburton, if you were a perimeter player, you could defend in playoff ball. At a high level. You look at Nesmith, you look at Andrew Nembhard, you look at Lou Dort. Right. It was like Ant probably wouldn't start for either of those teams, and then you start looking at other playoff teams, and it was like, yeah, he's probably not a starter on many of them. But I think how he does in this role, I think, is going to be interesting just to gauge him as a player, because there's still that debate of okay, is he closer to a fringe star or is he closer to a bench player? And now he's going to go from having fringe star usage to being a bench player. So that'll be interesting to watch for sure. Of course, I'm rooting for him too. Good guy. He could win Sixth Man of the Year like Pritchard did last year. I do think the funny thing is I don't see Boston as a real contender though. Next year, I think they're 6th seed, 7th seed. Mo says, good guy, horrible taste in women. You don't... I don't know if I'd agree with that. He seems happy. I'm not going to judge. Anyway, poll for the 8 p.m. tip-off times. Going to be some late nights on the live streams. 40% dislike it, 46% dislike it or hate it. So not many people voted hate it. 24% love it. I love it just because it's something different. So kind of split. It's pretty split here. I had no idea what you guys were going to vote for that, so that was an interesting poll. Mount Hood, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't really judge that type of stuff. It's not my place to judge that type of stuff. Miles Martin says, excited as I am about this team, I would have liked to see a new coach. Hopefully the new staff additions make a noticeable difference, especially on offense. Yeah, I think bringing back Chauncey, everything after the season was like the best case scenario for bringing back Chauncey. You had him in his exit interviews admit his struggles as an offensive coach, especially with like getting player movement in the half court, because that was a major issue with the offense last year. Was you don't have many one-on-one players and you got a lot of guys standing around. And it's one thing to pass the ball around the arc, but at the end of the day, if nobody's moving, whoever catches it is just going to have to create one-on-one, figure out what to do. There's too much offense like that. And Chauncey admitted that. Like, Chauncey's admissions in his exit interview were a lot of my critiques of him. So that was a good sign. Now, being aware of the problem and fixing it are two different things. But he did bring in a lot of interesting assistant coaches that I hope can help him reinvent the offense. And him knowing like kind of what he needs to do, I think makes me more optimistic that he'll lean more on those guys. So it's exactly what I hoped for. Once it became clear they were bringing him back. And I think with the new owner coming in, this is the year for Chauncey. He either figures it out or he doesn't, and he's probably gone. Because if this team doesn't win more games, if it takes a step back after improving, and you have a new owner that is not just going to settle for that sort of stuff, it seems like, this is the year for Chauncey. And at this point, I'm all for just like, all right, well, this is your year to reinvent the offense. Hopefully the offense looks better. I know people have given him the personnel excuse, but it's like when you don't have guys that can score one-on-one, that's less of an excuse to play in isolation and not move players. It just didn't really make sense to me. So, we'll see. Chris Burkhart says, I think Splitter is a home run hire, to be honest. I'm excited to see his work with Klingen and with Young Hansen. Going to be a fun assistant coach to have. I like, God, I'm blanking on his name. The guy that was the assistant coach for the Grizzlies last year. I like that hire as well. Chris says, those 8 p.m. tip-off times can kick rocks. I'll be leaving Moda after midnight. Man. Yeah, see, that's the nice thing is I can literally roll off the stream into bed. That is the nice thing for me. The cool thing for me, a lot of those tip-off times are on a Tuesday. I play basketball like 6 to 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, so I can play basketball, come home, watch basketball, stream, roll into bed. Sounds like a good night to me. But leaving Moda Center after midnight, no joke. I like something different. It's going to be fun to watch the broadcast as a fan and see what NBC does. So I'm happy that we have a lot of those games. We feel respected again. I think the Posey hire is a good hire too. That one being later than the rest, but that's also a good hire. So, like, the assistant coaches that Chauncey brought in, I'm hopeful that they can have a real impact. I think defensively, it's not going to be anything too complicated. You got Robert Williams you can mix schemes up with, but when you're playing Klingon or Young Hansen, it has to be drop scheme on pick and roll. I think Klingon might be smart enough and can take up enough space to hedge, hopefully, or show kind of at the level of the screen, but I think it's going to be a lot of drop scheme, which is fine when you have a big like Klingon. I think offense is where they need the most work. They ran a lot of drop scheme last year. Didn't look good with Aiden in the game. Looked fine with Klingon in the game, so not really looking for anything different defensively. I think these assistant coaches, it's a lot of like, splitter. It's going to be a lot of skill work with the bigs. And then these assistant coaches, like I think Posey's just a good, like hard-nosed ex-NBA player to have on the staff. And the other guys I'm hoping can have an impact offensively. Especially, God, I keep blanking on his name, the guy they brought in from Memphis. I was also surprised they didn't have a preseason game in China. I felt like that was something the NBA would do with Young Hansen on the roster. But once he establishes himself, I would expect that to kind of become a reoccurring thing. Feels like the first time in some time the staff each has strengths and a focus that they can hammer home, and that's a good thing. Oh, you mean strengths beyond just being Chauncey Billups' brother? Yeah, I agree. I agree. No nepotism. Love that. We travel the most this season of all teams. That's always going to be the case being up in the Northwest. That's why I wish they'd bring back the Sonics. One of the reasons why I wish they'd bring back that team, just to have a close team up here. But also when you're doing a 5-game road trip, and the first 2 games are in Florida, and then the other 3 games are against Western Conference teams, it's like you're flying all the way to Florida and only knocking out 2 of the 15 East Coast games that you have to play. So I think the NBA, when it has road trips like that, doesn't do any favors for the travel miles, because then you got to travel all the way back to the East Coast. The more times they have to travel back to the East Coast, the more miles they're going to have to fly. So it's almost better, in my opinion, to have like 3 road trips, a 6, a 5, and a 4-game Eastern Conference road trip, and just get it out of the way as fast as you can. Patrick St. Andrews, yeah, that was what I was thinking, but I didn't know if it was right. I couldn't remember if it was right. Is Blazer Vision confirmed a thing again, local channel 2? I would expect Blazer Vision to be a thing again. I assume so. Yeah, I don't know for sure, but yep. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap up the stream. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. We'll be live again on Monday. We'll have Eric back, so that'll be cool. That's just going to be a stream to catch up and get his thoughts on the new ownership and the new schedule. And we're getting closer to September. So September, it's going to be a lot of season preview stuff where we'll focus on specific players and what we expect out of them, set some stat goals, that sort of thing. Normally in August, we'll just have some random streams and just hang out. Nothing too serious. But we do have a new sponsor coming on in September, a presenting sponsor for at least the majority of the season that I'm super excited to share with you guys. Super, super excited for that. So we got some good things around the corner. Anyway, if you're watching back after the fact, I appreciate you. Leave your thoughts on the schedule and the new ownership group in the comment section below. If you're watching live, hit the like button. Easiest way to support the channel. Subscribe if you're new. Good to see all of you. Thank you, Chris. You have a good night, too. I'm out of here. It's been fun solo streaming, but it's going to be good to have Eric back. And it's going to be a fun season. Really looking forward to it. I'm out of here. Have yourselves a good rest of your night and a good weekend. And until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers!